This week on the Backtable podcast.
And I can remember also when I first started, so that people knew my name, I started to just call the operator of the hospital and do a page. I'm paging Dr. Silva. so that the people around started hearing my name. Yeah. I got that idea from an attending of mine. I don't know if he actually did it, but he
wait a minute. You call the operator and you say, "Hey, paging Dr. Silva."
Yeah.
So then a couple times a day, basically, you're advertising effectively.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I didn't have anything else to do. It was that or Netflix. So,
right.
so sometimes I did rounds and when I say rounding, I'm just walking through the hallways. I'm not actually seeing patients. So I'm just walking through the hallways, saying hi to the nurses. Hey, I'm here. Just meeting physicians on my own. So yeah.
Hustling. I mean, you're hustling just like every other business person on the planet. You're out there saying, if I don't do this, I'm going nowhere. So here we go. I'm hustling. Well, welcome everybody to the Backtable podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Jose Silva, also known as Oche. And can we just call you Oche?
Yeah, no problem.
That'll work. All right, good.
Yeah.
Let's give the audience a little bit. Let's get them a chance to get to know you also. So I'll kick it off by telling a little story about how we got together. It was me, Oche, and the governor, the former governor of Puerto Rico. We met, I think, on the first day. It would have been like 10 days before MIT started back in 97.
97, yeah. August, last week of August.
Right. When they pulled us all on the tennis court. And I think, I don't know exactly. Did you get recruited, Oche?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Coach Hamilton called me. I think it was in April. And
yeah. What's up, Coach? I hope we'll send him a copy. So I think you guys got recruited, and I was in the process of talking my way on. I think to put it lightly, I bluffed Coach on my ranking in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah.
Back to me, it's like, you were ranked what again? But anyway, so we met and became friends that first week of tennis practice back in 97. Man, it's been a couple weddings, a couple big events, and a lot of life in between.
Yeah, that's true. It's been more than 20 years.
Yeah. So
I feel old now.
I know, right? We're old. It happened. How did you get into medicine, Oche?
So I guess in high school, thinking out things I was going to do. I mean, both my parents are dentists. I have an aunt; she's a dentist. I have my grandparents, both my grandfather on my mother's side and my dad's side. They were physicians. One of them was an anesthesiologist. The other one internal medicine. So I guess I grew up in this medicine world. Even if it was dentist or medicine, that's what I knew or that's what I saw my family do. So in that sense, it was like imprinted in me. I don't know if I can explain it like that, but
it made an impression on you.
Yeah. So it's what I knew. So definitely going to college, I had that in mind, and I knew that I was going to be a physician. So
not dentistry, huh?
So I didn't like dentists. Yeah, I mean, maybe looking back now, I wish I liked it, but at that time I didn't. I found it very boring in the sense that it's very repetitive what they were doing. So yeah, dentistry didn't sound good to me at that time. I mean, now looking back, working just 8 to 5 or less and no weekends, yeah, that would be great. But it's not what I'm doing right now. So, but yeah, so that part. But I never knew what I was gonna do in medicine.
Yeah,
I just well, and also my mother and my father, or at least my mother, always said, "You're gonna be a doctor. You're gonna be a doctor," since I was little. So that got imprinted in me. So that's what I wanted to do.
And so we graduated from MIT in 01, and Ricky and I went off to Michigan. I mean, I traded for a minute in the middle. And then did you go back to Puerto Rico after that?
So yeah, I went back to Puerto Rico. I did a master in public health. So talking, one point I took a course with Ricky's father. He was after he was the governor in Puerto Rico. He went to teach at Harvard.
Yeah.
So it was like a 6 weeks course, I think it was, and it was once a week. And I talked to him. So he did a master copy in public health after, while he was in residency. So he said, hey, if you want to do this, just try to get it right after college, just get it over with, and then just go to medicine. So that's what I did. So I went back to Puerto Rico. I did my master in public health in biostatistics, and then I started med school.
Okay,
in
cool.
Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Because why Puerto Rico? I mean, you wanted to be back home.
So yeah. So first, it was cheaper, much cheaper than going to the States, and
I didn't know that.
yeah, definitely much cheaper. So I mean, because I cannot go to state school in the States, so it would have been at that time like $60,000 to $70,000 a year, versus in Puerto Rico was $10,000 to $15,000.
No kidding.
So definitely, and at the end of the day, same board, same everything. So it made sense. So yeah, so that's why I went back to Puerto Rico.
I didn't know that. I don't. Does it even work that way here with med schools? If you go to a state med school, it's cheaper.
So yeah, state school is much cheaper.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that for med school.
So yeah, so unless you go, I mean, you go to either to Harvard or one of the or Johns Hopkins, you went to the top ones. It really doesn't matter. I mean, it's not worth paying that much.
Yeah.
For because at the end of the day, you're gonna have the same education. But yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we've hung out at your house and with family and everything. I mean, it's such a good life there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that totally until I went there the first time. I didn't have any real impression, but I mean, it's such a good life, just fun and good food and good people all the time. And so anyway, I guess you do your medical training there and residency too. You decide to get into urology.
So I wanted to be going to orthopedic. So when I started my third year of medical school, I still didn't know what I want to do. At some point, I thought about doing neurology because I like the subject, I guess. But when I started rotating with neurology and seeing what I didn't like the practice. So one thing is that you enjoy reading about the brain or how it works and that part. Another thing is really how it translates to the clinical aspect. So at the end of the day, you're just giving medication. And that was my opinion of neurology, giving medication and not really knowing why you're giving that.
Yeah.
And most of the time it works because the data show it works, but really you don't have that much idea on how really it works. But so when I started doing 30-year rotations, I like surgery. So say, oh, I'm going to be a surgeon, or at least I want to be in the surgery field. But when I went into orthopedics, that I really enjoyed. So I didn't have exposure of urology while in med school. So I wanted to be orthopedic. So it reminded me of MIT. I mean, we did biomedical engineering. You had a hammer. You have really. It was like being in a carpenter
right.
shop. I didn't get accepted. So I'm doing 1 year of surgery. Is that I see urology, and that's when I like the urology world, that you could do clinic and you could also do surgery. Eventually, when I get older and I don't want to do surgery anymore, you can still do some clinic and just send the patient if they need surgery to one that is doing the surgery. So I like that diversity in the field. And also I saw the lifestyle of all urologists down in Puerto Rico. You have emergencies, but really seldom. So yeah. So I mean that's
yeah. So I mean, I'm interested a little more in that decision because I mean, I'm a layman. Everybody in my family is a doctor, so I kind of get it. But tell me if I got it right. I mean, urology is basically the entire field is penises. Is that more or less true?
So that's not true. So actually,
okay.
Yeah. So the first time that I went into a urology actual OR, because a friend, the cousin of a friend of mine, he always told me, "Hey, come into urology." But that's what I saw. I saw him in front of a penis, and I said, "Hey, I don't want to have that life."
Right.
So who wants to do that?
Right.
So that's what I knew, and that's what you're saying. That's what I thought.
Okay.
So when I'm in general surgery, I started going to the ORs of urology, and I started seeing the stone procedures, so procedures to break stones,
Oh,
and that's what got me into urology. That's when I started. Hey, this looks so fun. So basically, in urology we do kidney surgery, we do stones, we do it's all the genital urinary tract in men and women.
okay.
So in terms of penis, we only do external genitalia in men. We don't usually don't do external genitalia in female, but all the urinary tract we will cover that area in both male and female.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So it had all the aspects. I mean, you're looking for quality of life, you're looking for clinical and surgical, and being able to let this be a field you can kind of get into for a while. And that's what,
Exactly. So other fields that are purely surgical, I mean, once you get old, that you may don't have the endurance to,
yeah.
let's say, do 10 or 15 surgeries a week, you start going down, then you really don't have anything else. Like general surgery, I mean, there's no clinic in that sense, because you cannot just live on just doing abscess in the office. I mean, that's some people might, but that might not be a real practice. Most of the general surgeons, for example, they live off appendectomies, cholecystectomy, so taking out things that come through the ER, the hernia, so some surgeries, so basically surgical cases. They don't do clinics like us. Like we diagnose cancer, we do cystoscopies in the office, we do biopsies in the office, we do vasectomies in the office, we do a bunch of small procedures in the office that you can continue doing them for a long period of time.
I got you. It emerged as the right field. I guess you do a residency and all that, and you start opening up a practice, or how did that work?
So yeah, so at least in Puerto Rico, it's not like in the States. In Puerto Rico, most of the after you finish residency, you go into solo practice. So that trend, I
That's
think.
the path.
So it's been like 30 years in the States that there's no that. So but in Puerto Rico, it's still like that. Everybody's solo practice.
Okay.
So yeah, you just go in and hope you get a loan from a bank or talk to the hospital. Hey, I want to set up a urologist here. Maybe they can help you, and that's partly what they did with me. They, for example, they gave me 6 months free for rent, and in the meantime, you're seeing their patients, you're taking calls. So that's how it works at the beginning. But really, it's mainly a solo practice. Some other people buy the practice of someone that is retiring. There's small groups that are starting to come up. I think radiology will be the only or the only practice that actually works more or less like in the States. Like you go in and you're employed by other radiologists, not like here, like it's major corporations. So you don't see that major corporations in Puerto Rico.
Is it changing at all? Or is it still the same way?
For now it's still the same. Yeah, you don't see major. I think urology physicians are grouping together mainly just to try to have more power against the insurance companies.
Do you know why it's that way? I mean, what is it about Puerto Rico that is maybe interfering with groups or with the larger corporations?
That's a good question. I'm not sure why corporations. So, for example, I'm going to give you this example. And I'm thinking back, the only corporation in Puerto Rico is there's a PMR, Physical Medicine and Rehab, and they actually contracted with the insurance to get lower. Basically, they will tell the insurance, hey, don't pay them 100% of what you're paying now. I'll do the same for 80. So that's what they did. So what happened was that a lot of PMR just left the island, and that's what's been happening. That a lot of physicians are leaving. But yeah, not many corporations are just going in, because they will have to then negotiate with the insurance company with the payers.
Yeah.
And then probably all the other urologists will just stop taking that insurance or whatever. So yeah, but it will be interesting because it's going to happen. It's a matter of time.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, I've seen this from my family. My parents came from India and they're docs here. I mean, my dad in particular, he's an entrepreneur. I mean, he had to buy his own practice and set it up. And I guess if you have to do it that way, it's interesting. I think if you weren't from Puerto Rico, it would be hard to do that. It would be hard to do that there because you have to build up that practice from your network ultimately.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess that's a conversation for another time, but that's interesting. And so,
Yeah, it is an interesting topic. And right now, yeah, like you said, everybody's small business. So all the physicians are small business, and that's what they're entrepreneurs because they're managing their own office, and that's the way it is.
right, you got to go, like you said, you got to get a loan, you got to find some free rent
Yeah,
if you can, scrape
yeah,
by, make it happen, hire some help, and then you're running a business, basically.
exactly. Yep, yep.
And so here you are, you're running a business for, I don't know, what, 10 odd years or so, maybe 8 years, or how long was
So
it?
so it was actually less. So it was. So I finished 2014,
Okay,
and then the hurricanes strike on 2017.
17. Okay, so you're up
So
and
it was
running.
3 years. So you have 3 years. So at first, when I first started the practice, I was literally just watching Netflix. So basically, just waiting for people to show up. So
That's what it's like,
I
though. I mean, when I went on, sorry to interrupt you, but like
yeah,
when I
no,
went
go
on
ahead.
my own, I remember I got my first office and I left my company and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out on my own. And I'm sitting there staring at the phone and it's only cold callers that are calling me. And I'm picking up the phone trying to talk to every single one of them because I'm
Yeah.
just like desperate for somebody to talk to. And you're like, this is scary. What is going to happen here?
Yeah, so I started just going in the medical building, just going out to the other offices, handing my business card, tell the other physician, hey, this is my cell phone number. Just text me, do whatever you need. I'm here. Ready to see your patients. I used to go to the hospital and just talk to the nurses. Hey, is there any consult for urology? Does it have a name? Because there were other two urologists there, and all of them were very, very nice. You have to sort of, prior to going to a hospital, if there are other urologists, just talk to them and try to get under the wing and get the blessing, because if not, it can bring you problems.
Meaning,
But I mean, you're talking about urologists that have been there for 30, 40 years. They run the place. So basically, you need to talk to them prior to going to a hospital. You need to get blessed by them, and that's happens throughout all the other hospitals. Some people have tried to go into a hospital just without talking to the urologist first and just going with management, and the other physicians might turn their back against them.
yeah.
'Cause- so at least in that sense, I was blessed. I didn't have that issue. So yeah, actually, the other urologists encourage other physicians to send me patients because they're pretty busy. I mean, this is our practice that their waiting list is 3 months. So definitely they don't want to see more patients. I mean, they're good, and also they don't want to go to the hospital. So all the consult will start to be on my name, and that's how slowly it started going.
Well, it's funny because I mean, I want to ask if it's different in the States, but I don't even need to ask because I'm sure it's a little different, but at the end of the day, it's not. And I'll tell you what I mean. Even in my business, I do a lot of things in technology, and everybody will say there's marketing and you got to disrupt and all these things, but in the end, it's rarely true. I mean, sometimes it's true like that, but in the end, you got to work within a network. That's the way you build a business.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can sometimes do something outside of that, but most of the time you got to do it one person at a time. And there is a little bit of a club, and you got to work your way into the club so that you can be a part of it, so that it can benefit you, even if you're an outsider. It's not, I mean, you got to do it. And especially in medicine, I think, because everything comes by referral, it sounds like there's really no other way to do it.
Yeah, and that's exactly, yeah, that is true. And I can remember also when I first started, so that people knew my name, I started to pitch my name, or just call the operator of the hospital and do a page. I'm paging Dr. Silva. So so that the people
Really?
around started hearing my name.
Yeah.
I got that idea from an attending of mine. I don't know if he actually did it, but he he
So
he
wait a minute. You call the operator and you say, "Hey, paging Dr. Silva."
yeah.
So then a couple times a day, basically, you're advertising effectively.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
I didn't have anything else to do. It was that or Netflix. So
Right.
so sometimes I did rounds and when I say rounding, I'm just walking through the hallways. I'm not actually seeing patients. So I'm just walking through the hallways, saying hi to the nurses. Hey, I'm here. just meeting physicians on my own. So
You're
yeah.
hustling. I mean, you're hustling just like every other business person on the planet. You're out there saying, if I don't do this, I'm going nowhere. So here we go. I'm hustling.
And also, I mean, part of what you mentioned for Puerto Rico, that I mean, most of the people of Puerto Rico, at least in that network, they stay there. So when I went back to medical school back in Puerto Rico, most of my friends from high school were still there. So I continued hanging out with them. When I went to this hospital at Condado, a lot of my seniors from general surgery, other specialties were there. So they also helped me build my practice.
Man, I mean, that's so rough because you do all that work and you build it up, and now you're on a good path. I mean, you're maybe just starting to see the rewards. 3 years in isn't that long at all, and then Maria hits.
Yeah, so definitely I would say that my best month was that August. That August prior to Maria, I said, okay, I feel good. I'm making the amount that I want to make. So everything was looking good. And actually, we were in the process of buying a house, and then for some reason we couldn't get close the offer. The bank was just, I mean, just what they didn't care. They said, oh, whenever, and then Irma, the first hurricane was Irma. That I think Irma eventually came to Florida,
right?
And then no power for 2 weeks. Or I think it was 10 days. I think one day with power, and then we had Maria. So Maria was a big one.
So 10 days with no power, and you're kind of navigating throughout, and then Maria comes, and it's
yeah. So power, no power means I couldn't see patients in the office. So I have all my record is electronic and everything in the office. So I couldn't see any patients. I mean, I saw about 8 to 9 patients in the morning, on but eventually it was so hot in the office and I couldn't open the window. So I said, hey, we cannot see more patients. So
I mean,
so
your office was in the hospital, right?
So yeah, I seen here they call it the MOB, the medical building office. So basically, it was adjacent to the hospital.
Okay.
It's not part of the hospital. The hospital, I think they rented. They own 4 or 6 offices in that building.
Okay.
So again, so everybody there, most of solo, all of them are physicians. So all of them own their office. So it's not that they're renting to the hospital, but the hospital had 6 offices, and I was renting one of them.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, oh well, even if the power's out in Puerto Rico, if you're a part of a hospital, there's going to be power. But
no. So now the building they bought one, but at that time we didn't have anything. So when Maria came in, I think it was like 2 weeks after I was able to go to the office to see exactly what happened. Luckily, it wasn't that damage. It was a lot of water, but there wasn't any structural damage. So that was good. But again, the hospital didn't have power. They were running. They had, I think, three generators, and sometimes one broke. So that was the hospital. Wasn't the building. So for the building, I think it was like 6 to 8 weeks with actually no power.
just none whatsoever.
No.
And so, what are you doing during this time? Are you at home? Are you trying to squeeze patients?
So my wife was pregnant at the time. She was expecting, I think, it was a planned C-section. I think it was going to be the last week of September, but eventually there's no power in the hospital. There's no oxygen in the hospital.
Jeez.
So we couldn't do any surgeries. So the planned C-section, we couldn't do it. So October 9th, there's power, there's oxygen, and I was there. So I talked to the GYN or the obstetrician, said, hey, okay, bring your wife, we'll do it now. And that's what we did. But during that time, I wasn't seeing any patients. So I was just at home.
Back to Netflix. Wait, no, there's no Netflix. There's no power.
There's nothing. So just hanging out at home. I mean, at first, it was a 1-2 week vacation. It was great. At first, I didn't got any calls from the hospital, so that was sweet. Remember, I'm in a solo practice. I'm on call 24/7. So for me, having 2 weeks off, that was awesome. And again, I didn't know exactly the extent of the damage in the entire island. So
Right.
I mean, it
You
was
can't know that. Is that right? I mean, you don't have, I mean, you're not seeing what we're seeing over here because we're watching on the media, but you're not able to see that really.
I didn't know anything. We didn't have gas. The gas stations were, so I was trying to conserve the two cars in my house with gas. So just in the case of because we knew that there wasn't any gas, so that was a big problem. So yeah, so we were trying to was just paying attention to my wife. I mean, she was pregnant, and it was day by day.
Yeah, that's the focus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you said it was about 2 months. Is that right?
So
From
I think eventually I got a cell phone that I was using in the office, but because I I didn't have power, I had a like the internet in my office and the telephone was through the cable company,
oh, I see.
and the cable company runs on power. So the cable company didn't have power. They don't have the capacity, and they still don't have the capacity to run the entire. I don't know. I think they run like 80% of the cable in Puerto Rico to run entirely with a generator. So basically, every time that you're without power, the phone is dead. So I had a cell phone. So eventually, I was able to get some reception, because at first for the first week there was no telephone line. I mean, no cell phones. Everything was down.
So there's no telephone during that time. So how are you even getting word about what's going on?
Some friends of mine from the street. So thankfully, my street, and you have been there. I have a bunch of friends. So some of them were actually going out to get gas for the power generators in their houses. So some of them were actually going out, and that's how I knew what was going out in the real world. Because at that time I was just living in my street only. I wasn't doing anything else. My parents live like 2 weeks, or they live uh, two streets away from mine. So really, there wasn't no need for me to go outside. We had food, so there wasn't anything for me in the outside world at that time.
Yeah.
Eventually, I started going out to the hospital and start seeing, hey, what we can do. So I think 3 or 4 weeks. I think by the third week, I was able to go into the office and just with the cell phone contact my secretary, contact my nurse, and we started seeing some patients that were scheduled for surgery. We started calling them. I remember my first surgery was actually a patient that had a urethral laceration from a gynecology surgery, and she had a stent. So I started doing those patients that had immediate need for surgery. And basically, I told her, hey, go straight to the ER, and I will do it from there. Because at first the hospital was closed. So I mean, they had some patients inside, but the ER was closed. So no new patient could go into the hospital. I think they only started opening it first for women that were pregnant. Eventually, the ERs opened, and then was when we started doing cases.
I see.
Because the hospital, the chillers for the OR got damaged. So everything that was sterile had to be re-sterilized, and they had to do that again. So once the OR was running, then we started doing some cases.
So it's all at this point now. It's everybody's improvising. I mean,
I was improvising, and then also when I was able to get I started calling friends of mine in the States, looking for options, started doing some locum tenens. And I actually was in the process of doing some locums, but the process was it took so much time. I think I started the process maybe in October, but because I didn't have internet, I couldn't send any information to them. So really everything got pushed back.
so I mean, you're like you said, you're right before this. You had your best month ever, pretty much.
Yeah.
This all happened. You spent a couple weeks hanging out, and now you're starting to think about how am I going to make money? How am I going to continue my work, essentially? And you're looking at options around the island. And I mean, how long does that play out? And what's your thought process during that time?
So yeah, so I would say Well, first, I was just doing day by day, a couple of patients in the office, and I think I was only doing December. I only was doing in the mornings. A bunch of patients coming in. Hey, doctor, can you give me my record? I'm moving to the States. So I saw a lot of patients just moving to the States.
Okay.
In November, my nurse, my right hand, told me I'm going to the States. Well, so what I'm gonna do? So again, and my wife had already mentioned, hey, I don't want to live this again. And the problem is on living an island is that you don't get any help. Even at that time, if the state send help, because you're in an island, it's very difficult to get that help and to get things going again. So, and my wife said, hey, we don't need this. I mean, we're both professional. My wife's in internal medicine. We don't need to suffer this. I mean, we don't need to suffer this again. So let's look for options.
Yeah.
And that's yeah, I think by December, at the end of this or mid December, I have already interviewed here in Florida, in Orlando, for Advent Health, and I think January where we made the decision.
Okay. And you left in January, or you left?
No. So we left at the end of the school year. So we left June 6th.
So at that point, I mean, when did the power come back on at home? Like at what
At
point?
home
Yeah.
was so the week before Thanksgiving. So it was like 2 months after.
So I mean, you're 2 months at home with no power. Then finally it comes back on, and at that point, you guys have already more or less decided we got to make a change because we spent 2 months without power. And then now you're able to kind of use the internet and start looking for options, is what it sounds like. And you find the opportunity in Orlando.
So yes, so I had a friend of mine here. I had actually two friends. One of them urologist. He was my resident in Puerto Rico, but so he went here to do a fellowship, and then he stayed. So he was my contact here.
Okay.
And yeah, we did the move. And I would say those months I would say February, March, things got busy pretty fast. A lot of older urologists didn't open or just decided to close after the hurricane. So it's not worth of going back. So I started seeing actually more patients. So for a moment we had doubts of whether we were gonna stay or not. But at the end of the day, I think we were looking for more stability and
More stability in all of life.
and economic stability, and just for things to be easier.
Yeah, meaning it because of the circumstances, oddly enough, it sounds like you could have stayed and maybe the practice would have been even more successful because you were one of the few left.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. But life kind of,
because even, for example, even if we were 8 weeks without power, we still had power problems every day or every other day. So that and even in the office, sometimes during the day, half an hour or 1 hour without power, half an hour, 1 hour without cable, without telephone lines, half an hour. Yeah, so that thing was a ongoing issue before, and it still is, and that hasn't changed. So definitely in that sense, I mean, we don't for now we don't have those issues here.
So let's talk about what you're doing now. What the opportunity was here and what you're up to, and part of what it was like to rebuild and what's up next.
Yeah, so I will let you know. So when I was in Puerto Rico, I joined 3 other urologists, and everybody had their own separate office, but it was mainly to negotiate or have better paid with the insurance, because every year, every couple of months, they try to pay you less. So that gets it's a never-ending battle, and that gets tiresome. Part of the positive that I look when going into a big corporation which I'm now, was first I was gonna get the same or the paycheck every 2 weeks, because sometimes in Puerto Rico it might have been a couple of weeks, couple of months. They usually pay 90 days since you see the patient. So they always owe you money, the payers. So here you get a check every 2 weeks. You don't have to deal with that negotiation. They have personnel that they do that daily. So in that sense, right now I'm practicing medicine. I'm not doing the other,
Yeah.
which I miss. I mean,
Right.
I mean, I, I, I miss being part of it because you feel like an entrepreneur.
Right.
You feel like you're doing something else. But really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just the amount of time you spend doing that, and really, you don't have any product out. Nothing comes out of it most of the time.
Pretty thankless. I mean,
Exactly. So you're giving 30, 40 hours a month in just that, and at the end, nothing came out. So I said, why I am spending all this time just meeting with people in the insurance comp? I mean, at the end of the day, they didn't. Nothing happened. So
yeah, I mean, what you're saying is you're an entrepreneur, you're a businessman, and your chosen trade for a while was medicine, and now it's flipped. And it's kind of good because on the one hand you miss the essence of business because you're practicing a lot of medicine. On the other hand, you're a very, very highly trained, specialized machine. Basically,
exactly, yeah,
it's a real waste in some ways. Every minute that you're not doing that, it's just it doesn't help anybody, really.
exactly. So now here I'm basically a physician. I go in, they see patients, and that's about it. There's some issues that I have to deal with them, but really, it's not like I have to do major time or spend time dealing with something else.
Yeah.
Right now, the extra time that I have in the office, I'm actually I'm doing marketing, so the hospital is helping me to promote myself to notify the community that I'm in that area, and yeah, so they're helping me. Yeah.
Well, it's good. I mean, who knows? Maybe the itch will come back, but on the other hand, it's weird because I think to be most of the time to be a successful business person of any kind, you got to have a strong sense of survival because the first several years are just survival, no matter what it is. But then you get to this point of it being successful, and I think it's actually hard to go from surviving to thriving. I mean, you got to flip.
True, and the amount of patients that I see, or new patients that I see, that told me, doctor, I'm here because my insurance told me that I needed to change urologist. And you have these big corporations just making deals with the insurance company. So to right now start your own practice, I think it will be very, very difficult, at least in a metropolitan area, or I mean, I'm in Orlando, but maybe in places that those big companies don't have any reach, maybe you can do that. But if you want to live in a metropolitan area, then it's going to be extremely difficult.
Because there are already arrangements, kind of like referral arrangements in place for each patient via their carrier.
So, for example, in this area that I'm at, there's two big companies. Once is the one that I work is Advent Health. The other big hospital group is Orlando Health, and they basically negotiate the deals with the payers, with the insurance companies. So yeah, so they're getting all the patients, they're getting all the referrals, which is good for me right now and in the setting that I'm at. But
Interesting.
if at some point I want to go on my own, it will be extremely hard.
Yeah, I mean, how would you even do it? You'd have to basically be an out of network doc and bring your patients with you.
And yeah, and it's too expensive to the patients being out of network. I mean, and those things we didn't have to deal with them in Puerto Rico.
I
You
gotcha.
you either were not part of the insurance, which is basically cash, or you were part of the insurance.
Well, and probably, and I don't know, but it sounds like the groups here are the analog. So you could join a group and they'll have a little bit more sway, or you could start a group and then you're kind of back at the beginning, which is scraping it together and hustling for referrals, essentially. We're going to have to hear Dr. Silva's name in the Orlando hospitals, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So right now, for example, 2 weeks ago, I did a webinar on benign prostate hyperplasia (BPH), and it was target the hospital pay for it, and it was target to the primary physicians in the area, and that kind of, I mean, and we have done that a bunch of times. So in terms of marketing, I mean, you still have to let them know that you're there.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit easier because you have somebody from marketing telling you, hey, let's make the phone call, just show up for 5 minutes, we'll take care of everything else. So that's what we're doing right now. So I just say hi, hey, this is my cell phone, and that's it. I don't have to go and knock on the doors of the PCPs, but I have done it, but it's definitely much easier because of the support that I have here now.
It's good to hear. And on behalf of mainland US, welcome.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Thanks, Anish.
Yeah. And so anyway, we'll be hearing more from you on upcoming on more Backtable episodes. And it's just, I appreciate you sharing your story, Oche. I think it's hard for us to fully appreciate what it was like and what that whole transition was like for many, and even what you went through. I know there were many others who had it a lot worse too. And so it's tough. It's tough
stuff. But I mean, I have seen so many. So a lot of physicians from, let's say, Cuba, Central America, South America, they go through Puerto Rico. So I have seen a lot of physicians, or they went, for example, neurosurgeons in Cuba, or specialties in other countries, that they want to have a better life, and they end up in the States, and the process that they have to start all over again. I mean,
yeah.
What I did was nothing to compare. I mean, compared to all of them. So that's what I'm blessed that I was able to do it, that I had the opportunity to do this. Some people want to leave the Puerto Rico, but they can't. So definitely I try to focus on that, and just all the good things that I have been blessed with. So
yeah, exactly. No, you're right. I mean, to uproot when you've got a good life, no matter where it is. And I think you make a good point there. I mean, look, the mainland, it's awesome, really. That said, there are a lot of places that are awesome, and when you have your family and kind of deep cultural connections around you, it's really something. I mean, like I said, I remember hanging out with your parents and your sisters and everybody, and it's just such a warm family environment,
And that's the everyday. That's the everyday there. It's not the everyday here. Yeah.
It's not the everyday here, and that's the flip side. So it's colder. I mean, there's less of that. And
I will say here, or at least in Puerto Rico, you have more highs and lows. Here it's just like a flat line.
Right.
That's probably my take on that. So yeah, you have the highs, you have lows, but here it's just flat.
Well, let's give some shouts out first and foremost to Ricky. Ricky, you're the man.
Where is he at? Virginia?
I was trading texts with him the other day. He's in DC, I think, or no, I don't know where he is. Anyway, he's somewhere. He's doing good though.
Good.
And to Tanya and Katya and everybody else, I guess a couple shouts out. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I guess my wife. She's probably be hearing this at some point. so I don't want to ever leave her out of this. And my son and my daughter and my dad, my parents.
Yeah. Good. Well, all right. Well, Oche, as much as anything, it's good to catch up, man. Good to talk. And thanks for being on the show. And we'll be looking forward to more.
No, thanks for the invitation. And definitely, I mean, I'm looking forward to this, and it's going to be great.